Colombia's president asked the parliament to withdraw a tax reform proposal that provoked nationwide demonstrations. South Africa plans to ban the breeding of lions in captivity for trophy hunting. And India records more than 400,000 new COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. Colombian President Duque has asked the parliament to withdraw a tax reform proposal that provoked massive demonstrations in major cities of the country. However, he insisted that he will propose a new initiative that excludes the most controversial themes of the previous one.
I ask the Congress of the Republic to withdraw the project filed by the Ministry of Finance and urgently process a new project as a result of consensus, and thus avoid financial uncertainty.
El Salvador's new Legislative Assembly has voted to remove the judges of the Constitutional Chamber of the Supreme Court. Dominated by the ruling party, the Assembly voted 64-19 with one abstention to oust the 5 magistrates of the chamber, which had angered President Nayib Bukele by ruling against some of his tougher measures during the pandemic. Ruling party lawmakers defended the decision, saying the court had put private interests above the health and welfare of the people, while the opposition called it a power grab by a populist president seeking a total control.
It is evident that the members of this court are not up to the needs of El Salvador, which clearly needs more conscious officials, more attached to the protection of people's lives. And
is being done tonight in the Congress with a majority that the people vote for. It is a coup d'etat.
And high tensions and attacks have dominated the first debate of Peru's presidential runoff. Pedro Castillo of the Peru Libre Party, who led the first round with 19% of the vote, faced Keiko Fujimori of the Fuerza Popular Party, who secured 13% of the vote during the first round. Castillo said he met with the Russian ambassador, securing a much-needed supply of COVID-19 vaccines if he wins the presidency. Meanwhile, Fujimori also promised to increase vaccination to racial Peruvians during 2021. The runoff elections is set to take place on June the 6th.
From here in Chota, I greet the Russian ambassador, whom I met yesterday, and we can guarantee 20 million vaccines sent on 28 July and available during the first 2 weeks of August.
first, for a change in attitude. We are tired of those governments that offer everything and then do not fulfill their word. That change also means no stop using the rapid COVID-19 test that meant using a blindfold and not knowing the truth.
The French overseas territory of Guadeloupe has begun vaccinating every citizen over the age of 18. Doctors said the aim is to achieve collective immunity as quickly as possible. However, only about 12% of the Caribbean islands' population of 395,000 have so far been vaccinated. People, especially young adults, remain hesitant whether to get inoculated or not, doubting the effectiveness of the vaccines and complaining about the contradicting opinions of local doctors regarding the jabs.
At first I was against it, but it's true that as I live with my grandparents, I prefer to take precautions.
There's this effect, of course, of training that we are looking for. There's also the fact that we have a population that's rather old. We have a population that still has a high rate of long-term illnesses. And then we're in a certain situation of isolation, far from everything. And so all that makes it a real interest to vaccinate as quickly as possible.
Hundreds of Hondurans have protested in the capital Tegucigalpa against the government on International Workers' Day. Protesters marched across the main avenues of the city, demanding that the government of President Juan Orlando Hernández solves the dire shortages of medicine, oxygen tanks, and vaccines. Riot police in full protective gear have observed the rally. Honduras has so far registered over 212,000 COVID-19 cases and nearly 5,300 fatalities.
There is nothing. There is no medicine. There is not oxygen. And we don't have the vaccine either. What is the government thinking? Kill us all? Is that what they want? That all Hondurans die?
We came today to call on President Juan Orlando Hernández to resign. We want the narco dictatorship out and free vaccines against COVID-19.
More news coming up after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. South Africa has revealed plans to ban the breeding of lions in captivity for trophy hunting or for tourists to pet in a bid to promote a more authentic experience. However, the Environment Minister said the legally regulated hunting of the iconic species will continue to be permitted.
The report says, with regard to captive breeding of lions, it says that we must halt and reverse the domestication of lions through captive breeding and keeping. We don't want captive breeding, captive hunting, captive petting, captive use of lions and their derivative.
In terms of the hunters, quite significant in terms of the contribution to the wildlife economy. Hence, Minister had always referred to a responsible and authentic hunting.
What the majority?
6 supporters of former Ivory Coast President Laurent Gbagbo have returned home after 10 years of exile in Ghana. The exiles, who include former budget minister and Laurent Gbagbo's younger sister, landed in Abidjan and were greeted by dozens of activists and journalists. The return has been facilitated under the sponsorship of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in an agreement with the current Ivorian government in the name of national reconciliation. Laurent Gbagbo is also expected to return in the near future after his acquittal on March 31st by international justice from crimes against humanity committed during the crisis.
I feel serene. I feel overwhelmed with gratitude towards my creator, but especially towards my comrades who have mobilized to run the party. I am really happy.
They stayed in exile for so long.
North Kivu due to worsening violence. President Felix Tshisekedi said the objective of the decision is to secure the regions where 122 armed groups operate, including the Allied Democratic Forces, a group of Ugandan Islamist fighters based in eastern DRC since 1995. In recent attacks, hundreds of people have been killed and many others displaced. The Congolese Association for Access to Justice welcomed the move, but called on Parliament urgently to pass legislation to prevent abuses. UN Human Rights report in March estimated that the country had seen a 32% rise in human rights abuses, especially by the military.
The decision of the head of state is in the interest of the population. It will ensure security can return to the province of North Kivu and Ituri, and of course everywhere in the DRC. So it's a good decision. It may be unpopular, but it remains a good decision because it will help, in accordance with what the head of state and the Prime Minister have said, to control security issues in North Kivu.
Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed has abandoned a contentious policy voted earlier in the month that extended his term in office by 2 years. The president also asked Prime Minister to start organizing elections that have been previously postponed and oversee the security of the polls. Deadly clashes have broken out between armed rivals in the capital, Mogadishu, since President Mohamed failed to hold elections before his term ended in February. The international community has repeatedly called for the elections to go ahead, threatening sanctions against the nation of 15 million.
I want to make clear that Prime Minister Roble Mohamed Hussein will lead in preparing and implementing the election and the security of the election, and also the Prime Minister will be responsible for executing the security plan in accordance to the country's constitution.
And preliminary results in India's regional elections have seen the All India Trinamool Congress Party maintain control of the West Bengal state. India's Election Commission said the party was leading in 201 seats compared to 78 seats for the Bharatiya Janata Party, the nationalist party of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Final results are to be released late Sunday. Modi's ruling party, which has a stranglehold on Hindu-dominated areas in northern and central India.
This victory is of a mother. This victory is of a sister, children and adults. For a long time, we were waiting for this, that we win. For too long, politics based on religion was going on. In fact, the people who were talking against Muslims, that Muslims are on their side. Muslims and Hindus are all in India together. With Mamata Banerjee, everything has been shown. There is only one tigress in West Bengal.
How many hoopla was made by the Modi government, ministers from his party, from Bihar, from Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, they all were here in the West Bengal to campaign, but the public of West Bengal has shown what they want. The people of Bengal have shown Modi that he is not wanted here.
India's devastating COVID-19 surge has further accelerated with more than 400,000 new cases recorded in the last 24 hours. With the expansion of the rollout to all adults, around 600 million people are now eligible to get vaccinated, but many states said they have insufficient stocks. But very few of younger adults have been given vaccination appointments, and only around half a dozen of India's 28 states began vaccinating people under 45. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has resisted imposing a national lockdown, but many states have imposed heavy restrictions.
I think the government has then be such chaos if the government had planned ahead.
France, Germany and Russia are among the latest countries to send shipments of coronavirus aid to India, hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. The shipments include tons of medicines, medical equipment like ventilators and hundreds of thousands of vaccine doses. In China, at least 11 people have been killed and about 100 were injured after a strong hail and thunderstorm hit the eastern city of Nantong. According to a local meteorological station, the wind force has reached speeds of 117 kilometers per hour, ripping through roads, barriers, and downing trees on the sidewalks. Electric lines have also been damaged, causing a power outage in the city. Several homes have been badly damaged, and more than 3,000 residents have had to be evacuated to safety. More news in a minute, don't go away. In Israel, thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews have attended the funerals of young victims of the Meron Stampede tragedy. 2 boys, one 12 and the other 18 years old, were among the 45 people who were crushed to death at a religious celebration. There were conflicting reports about what caused the crash, but multiple witnesses said scores of people trampled each other as they moved through a narrow passage. Several Israeli media outlets reported that about 100,000 people had attended the ceremony instead of the 10,000 that was authorized. Sunday was being declared a national day of mourning. At least 7 people have been killed and 14 injured after several fuel tankers caught fire in the Afghan capital of Kabul. Eyewitnesses said the fire started when the spark set one of the fuel tankers ablaze, setting fire to several other tankers nearby. The flames torched several homes and gas stations, destroying structures and cutting off electricity supply to parts of Kabul. There was no immediate information on the cause of the fire, and investigations are still underway.
The tanker's owners lost a lot of money. My car cost me $22,000. It's burned completely.
There were 3 consecutive blasts followed by a huge flame. We moved our family, the children, and the women to a garden.
At least 6 people, including 2 firefighters, have been injured in a chemical factory blaze near Iran's central city of Qom. Videos show heavy black smoke rising from the chemical factory near Qom, one of Iran's prominent religious cities. 20 fire engines and 115 firefighters were dispatched to the site. There were several explosions and 2 fire engines also caught fire during the inferno. Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also said that U.S. sanctions on most individuals and institutions are expected to be lifted as well. Araghchi did not say under which mechanism sanctions will be lifted or referred how Tehran will meet Washington's demands and return to its commitments under the 2015 nuclear deal. The U.S. State Department had not immediate comment on the Iranian negotiations in their remarks. Meanwhile, the Vienna
Example, the sanctions on Iran's energy sector, including oil and gas, or the sanctions on Iran's car industry, or the financial and banking sanctions. These sanctions on insurance posts must be lifted based on agreement reached until the moment, and there is an agreement on this. There is a long list of individuals and companies sanctioned by the U.S. Negotiations over the list is still going on. There has been agreement that the majority of them are removed from the list, but there are others that for various reasons are still on the list, and talking on this part are still going on.
Portugal has reopened its land border with Spain and began the final stage of easing COVID-19 restrictions. As well as the lifting of the border controls, the opening hours for cafes, restaurants and cultural venues have been extended, especially at weekends. Weddings and other gatherings will also be allowed again in venues limited to 50% of their capacity, as well as sporting activities. Overnight, the country's state of emergency was also downgraded to situation of calamity, which still allows authorities to keep some measures in place. Clashes have broken out in the French capital an hour after the May Day workers' parade set off. Riot police and protesters clashed with projectiles being thrown and tear gas being fired. At least 10 people were arrested. Thousands of people were marching for more protection for workers, while riot police in full protection gear accompanied them throughout the day. Dozens of similar rallies were held across the country.
We hope that the union will be made at the level of the awareness of all the French, that everyone goes down to denounce what is happening, to denounce all this social breakage. The use also that is made of this health crisis, which also allows for the passing of a lot of permissive laws, the democracy which is completely flouted.
The unemployment insurance reform. We are asking for the pure and simple repeal of this reform. It was decided in the middle of a social crisis. There is an enormous precariousness of the population. It will be a year, the first year of course. I think that everyone was shocked and overwhelmed by what was happening. by saying to themselves how we could show solidarity together. But now, for a year, we realize that we are in fact the ones showing solidarity. The state is not showing any solidarity at all. On the contrary, it obviously continues to sort out the world as it wishes.
Hungary has loosened several COVID-19 restrictions for people with government-issued immunity cards. The move is the latest in a series of reopening measures that have followed an ambitious vaccination campaign. As of Saturday, individuals with the plastic cards may enter indoor dining rooms, theaters, cinemas, spas, gyms, and museums. Hungary has given out 4 million first-dose coronavirus vaccinations, reaching around 40% of this population, and is the one EU nation using vaccines from China and Russia in addition to Western jabs. However, Hungary also has the highest total death rate per million inhabitants in the world, due to a devastating infection surge earlier this year.
We went to the vaccination point together. The whole family, our daughter, her husband, and the two of us. We all got vaccinated at the same time, on the 6th or 7th day. They received the immunity cards, but me and my wife are waiting for our cards for the 3rd week.
Today, during admission, we also saw that there are many guests who did not receive their immunity cards despite having been vaccinated in hospitals or in vaccination centers. We will try to take action on this matter and, if necessary, ask for an amendment to the legislation, since these people have already received 2 vaccinations in many cases. It would be perfectly reasonable to let these guests in.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.